The frontier does not build character, it reveals it. In the vast silence between the earth and sky, a soul is either forged in hardship or broken by the wind. The Montana sun beat down on the canvas of the wagon, a relentless heat that matched the icy disdain in Amos Blackwood's eyes. 19-year-old Eliza felt his gaze like a physical weight. Ever since her father's passing, her life had become a slow journey through a landscape of her stepfather's resentment. He was her legal guardian, a fact he wielded like a whip. "That girl's illness has cost us a month," he boomed to another settler, his voice carrying easily over the creak of the wheels. "We will be eating snow in the mountains because of her." Each word was a fresh wound, another reminder of her supposed weakness. She tried to make herself small, invisible within the confines of the swaying wagon. Eliza's fingers tightened around the cool silver of the locket she wore. It was her only tangible memory of her father, a small, smooth oval that held his likeness. Inside, his kind eyes seemed to offer a comfort that no longer existed in her world. The land in Oregon, her inheritance, was the true reason for this journey and the source of Amos's tyranny. He saw her not as a stepdaughter, but as a fragile obstacle between him and a prosperous future. The constant belittling had worn away at her spirit, leaving her feeling as frail as the doctors had claimed she was after the fever. She was a burden, and she had started to believe it herself. She looked across the wagon at her mother. Martha's hands were busy mending a tear in a sack of flour, but her eyes were vacant. Fear had hollowed out the woman Eliza once knew, replacing her with a silent, trembling shadow who lived in terror of her new husband's temper. "Mother?" Eliza whispered. But Martha only flinched, her gaze dropping back to her work. There were no words of comfort to be found there. There was only the shared, unspoken understanding of their powerlessness. Amos's cruelty had built a wall of silence between them, a wall that felt as vast and uncrossable as the plains outside. The sharp crack of splintering wood brought the wagon to a lurching halt. Another broken wheel. The caravan groaned to a stop around them. Amos leaped down, his face a mask of fury. He stalked over to Martha, his voice a low growl that was more menacing than any shout. "This is the last time," he seethed, just loud enough for Eliza to hear. "The last delay. You will talk to her, or I will solve the problem of your daughter myself. We will reach Oregon, with or without her." The threat hung in the hot, still air, promising a finality that made Eliza's blood run cold. This journey was no longer about a new home. It was about survival. The next morning, the air by the Yellowstone River was deceptively calm. Amos approached Eliza with a smile that did not reach his eyes. His voice was thick with false concern. "Eliza, your mother and I have been talking. The repairs will take all day. You are the quickest rider among us. We need you to ride ahead to the trading post at Red Rock. Tell them we are delayed but safe." He gestured to her horse, already saddled. It felt wrong, this sudden kindness. It was a mask, and she could feel the cold cruelty beneath it, but she had no grounds to refuse. To do so would only invite the wrath he had promised last night. As he helped her mount, she saw his hands linger on the leather girth strap, his movements quick and purposeful. "There, all secure," he said, patting the horse's flank. "You ride straight north. You cannot miss it." He was an expert with leather and horses. She had seen him repair harnesses that seemed beyond saving. His confidence should have been reassuring. Instead, a knot of dread tightened in her stomach. She looked for her mother, but Martha was busy at the back of the wagon, her face turned away. She was a part of this, Eliza realized, with a sickening lurch. Her own mother. Martha finally turned, her face pale and drawn. She pressed a small bundle into Eliza's hand, a piece of dried meat and a small flask of water. "Be careful, child," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her eyes would not meet Eliza's. The betrayal was complete. It was not a violent push, but a quiet, heartbreaking shove into the wilderness. Eliza wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but she knew it was useless. The decision had been made. She was being sent away. With a heavy heart, she nudged her horse forward, away from the only family she had left. A few miles into the vast, empty prairie, the world tilted violently. The girth strap snapped, the saddle slid sideways, and Eliza was thrown to the hard earth. A sharp, searing pain shot through her leg as she landed. Dazed, she pushed herself up, her ankle screaming in protest. In the distance, the dust from the wagon was a fading cloud against the horizon. They were not coming back. She shouted her mother's name until her throat was raw, but the only answer was the lonely whisper of the wind through the tall grass. She was alone, abandoned. The silence of the Montana wilderness closed in around her. Days bled into a blur of pain and survival. Eliza's ankle was swollen and discolored, forcing her into a slow, agonizing limp. She learned the bitter taste of unfamiliar berries and the earthy grit of wild roots. The sun was a merciless hammer by day, and the nights were a tapestry of chilling sounds and deep, profound loneliness. Hunger was a constant, dull ache in her belly, a reminder of her complete isolation. The world had shrunk to a singular focus. The next step, the next sip of cloudy water from a shallow creek, the next sunrise she prayed she would live to see. This was not living. It was a slow, painful fading. One evening, seeking shelter from the biting wind, she crawled into a narrow ravine between towering rock formations. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, she saw it. A great bear, sleeping soundly not 10 feet from where she lay. Its massive chest rose and fell in a slow, powerful rhythm. Terror, cold and absolute, seized her. She froze, not daring to breathe, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. An hour passed, an eternity of silent fear, until the great beast finally stirred, stretched, and ambled out of the ravine, oblivious to her presence. The encounter left her shaking, a stark reminder of how fragile her existence truly was. Exhausted and trembling from the encounter with the bear, she stumbled. Her hand, clutching her father's locket for comfort, slipped. The silver oval flew from her grasp, arcing through the air before disappearing into a deep, dark fissure in the rock. "No!" she gasped, scrambling to the edge. It was too deep. Gone. The last piece of her father, the last symbol of a life where she was loved, was lost to the earth. That final, cruel loss shattered the last of her resolve. There was nothing left to fight for. The prairie had taken everything. She sank to the ground, the fight draining out of her like water from a cracked cup. The pain in her ankle, the gnawing hunger, the crushing weight of her abandonment. It was all too much. Let the end come. She closed her eyes, picturing her father's face, hoping to find him in the darkness that was gathering at the edges of her vision. The vast, indifferent sky was the last thing she saw. This, she thought with a strange sense of calm, was where her journey was meant to end. Not in the promised lands of Oregon, but here, alone, under the endless Montana sky. From his vantage point on the ridge, Keem saw the flicker of her calico dress against the gray rock. He had been tracking the scent of smoke from a careless traveler's fire, wary of intrusion into the lands of the Riverwind people. His first instinct was caution. The white settlers, the Napequan, brought nothing but broken treaties and sorrow. His own people had learned this through bitter experience. He moved silently down the slope, his moccasins making no sound on the dry earth. His expression a mask of stern vigilance. He expected a threat, a trespasser to be driven away, but what he found was not a threat. A young woman lay near a fissure in the rocks, as still as death. Her face was pale, her lips cracked and dry from fever and thirst. Yet even in her unconscious state, there was a stubborn set to her jaw, a faint spark of defiance that the wilderness had not yet extinguished. He saw the tracks of her struggle, the uneven gait from an injured leg, the signs of her desperate foraging for food. This was not a careless traveler. This was someone who had been left behind, cast out by her own kind. His people held life as sacred. To abandon one's own, especially one so young, was a violation of the spirit, an act of profound dishonor. He felt a surge of cold anger, not at the woman, but at those who had left her to this fate. He hesitated. To help her would be to invite trouble. It would bring questions from his people, perhaps even the unwanted attention of the soldiers from the forts. To bring a Napequan into their camp was a risk. But to leave her here was to condemn her to a slow, certain death. The choice weighed heavily on him. He knelt beside her, his decision made. He could not leave her. His own honor, the very teachings of his elders, would not permit it. He gently lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, fragile as a bird. As he held her, her eyes fluttered open, clouded with fever. "Am I dreaming?" she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. The question, so full of vulnerability, solidified his resolve. "No," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "You are not dreaming." He did not know it then. But in that moment, he was not just saving a life. He was changing the course of his own. Eliza awoke to the smell of sage and wood smoke. The light was soft, filtered through the painted hide of a teepee. A woman with kind, knowing eyes and hair woven with threads of silver sat beside her, humming a low, gentle song. This was Tala, sister of the chief. She offered Eliza a bowl of warm broth, and the simple act of kindness felt so foreign that it brought tears to Eliza's eyes. She drank, the warmth spreading through her, chasing away some of the deep, lingering chill of the prairie. She was safe, a feeling she had almost forgotten. Later, Camille entered the teepee, his presence filling the space. He moved with a quiet grace that belied his strength. In his outstretched hand lay her silver locket. A gasp escaped her lips. "How?" He had seen where it fell, he explained in careful English. He had gone back for it, risking the unstable rocks of the crevice to retrieve the one thing she thought she had lost forever. "A warrior does not leave a part of the spirit behind," he said simply. Eliza took the locket, its familiar weight a profound comfort. He had saved not just her life, but a piece of her soul. In the days that followed, she learned of the Riverwind people. Tala taught her about the healing properties of plants and the stories woven into the beadwork on her deerskin dress. She discovered a world where a person's worth was measured in courage and wisdom, not in land or gold. Here, women were the heart of the tribe, their counsel sought and respected. It was a stark contrast to the world she had known, where a woman's life was dictated by her father or husband. For the first time she felt the ground of a different kind of freedom beneath her feet. But not all welcomed her. A young warrior named Chaitin watched her with eyes full of suspicion. His family had been lost in a conflict with soldiers, a wound that had never healed. To him, she was a Napiquan, a symbol of his pain. "The snake sheds its skin, but it is still a snake," he said to Kame one evening, his voice sharp with distrust. His open hostility was a constant, unnerving presence. It reminded Eliza that she was an outsider, and that the trust of these people was not a gift, but something she would have to earn, one day at a time. Weeks turned into a season. The prairie greened, and Eliza's strength returned. Keme became her teacher. He taught her the language of the land, how to read the clouds for signs of rain, how to find the North Star in a sea of night. He showed her which plants could heal and which could harm. "The prairie provides for those who know how to listen," he told her, his voice as calm and steady as the river that gave his people their name. Her hands, once soft, grew calloused and capable. Her spirit, once bruised, began to mend under the vast open sky. Their lessons were more than just about survival. They were a quiet conversation between two worlds. As they rode through fields of wildflowers, he would tell her the stories of his ancestors, and she, in turn, would speak of her father and the distant green of Oregon. A bond formed between them, unspoken but powerful. It was in the way he would wait for her when her steps faltered, the way she would learn to anticipate the meaning in his silence. It was a connection that transcended language, a recognition of a shared strength. She saw him not as the savage of Amos's cruel descriptions, but as a man of deep integrity and quiet wisdom. He moved through his world with a purpose and grace that humbled her. And in his eyes, she saw a reflection of herself she had never seen before. He did not see a burden or a frail woman. He saw a survivor. He saw the flicker of the fighter's spirit that he had first noticed when she lay near death. He called her Anpo the Dawn, for he said she had brought a new light with her. This growing closeness did not go unnoticed. Tala would watch them with a gentle, knowing smile. But Shaitan's gaze only hardened. He saw their connection as a betrayal of his own loss, a dangerous forgetting of the past. "You teach her our ways," he confronted Kim one day. "Will you also teach her how to break a treaty?" The Napiquan are good at that. The tension between the two warriors was a low hum beneath the surface of the camp's life, a reminder that Eliza's place here was still fragile, suspended between love and suspicion. Word travels fast on the frontier, carried by trappers and traders like seeds on the wind. The tale of a white woman living among the River Wind people reached the dusty streets of Red Rock. It reached the ears of Amos Blackwood. Realizing Eliza was alive, and therefore still the legal heir to the Oregon land, he rode into town with a new, more venomous plan. Her survival was not a miracle to be celebrated, but a problem to be solved, once and for all. He would not be denied his prize. He would reclaim his stepdaughter, and with her, her inheritance. Amos knew he could not take her by force alone. He needed the law on his side. He hired a man named Finch, a bounty hunter with a reputation for ruthless efficiency and eyes as cold as a winter morning. Then he stormed into the office of Sheriff Miller Cartwright, a man known for his fair but firm hand. Amos spun a tale of a savage kidnapping, of a grieving stepfather desperate to rescue his beloved child from the hands of heathens. "They have taken her," he cried, his performance full of false tears. "It is your duty to get her back." Sheriff Cartwright was a veteran of the frontier. He had seen enough lies to recognize the smell of them. Still, the law was the law. A report of a kidnapping could not be ignored. He agreed to investigate. The threat of involving the army, a prospect that could lead to bloodshed, hung in the air. News of the plan reached the Riverwind camp through a sympathetic trader. They would be at the trading post in 2 days for their seasonal trade. Amos and Finch would be waiting. The stage was set for a confrontation that could ignite the entire territory. Keme and Eliza rode toward the trading post, unaware of the trap that awaited them. For Eliza, the trip was a test of her new confidence. For Keme, it was a necessary risk to acquire goods for his people. As they neared the collection of rough-hewn buildings, Keme sensed a change in the air. The usual bustle was replaced by a tense stillness. Men watched them from the shadows of doorways, their hands resting near their firearms. "Something is wrong, Anpo," he said, his voice low. "Stay close." The scent of danger was unmistakable. As they dismounted, Amos stepped out from the general store, Finch at his side like a coiled snake. "There she is!" Amos bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at Eliza. "The savages have bewitched her." A crowd of settlers and trappers gathered, their faces a mixture of curiosity and hostility. Sheriff Cartwright stepped forward, his badge glinting in the sun. "Eliza Blackwood?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "Your stepfather has filed a complaint. He says you were taken against your will." The accusation hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Eliza felt a tremor of her old fear. But then she met Keem's steady gaze. He stood beside her, a silent pillar of strength. She took a deep breath, the lessons of the prairie grounding her. She looked not at Amos, but directly at the sheriff. "My name is Eliza," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Amos Blackwood is not my father. He is the man who left me to die in the wilderness." A murmur went through the crowd. Her simple, direct statement was more powerful than Amos's theatrical outburst. "Lies!" Amos sputtered, his face turning a blotchy red. "She is confused. These heathens have poisoned her mind." But Eliza continued, her voice unwavering. She told them everything. The journey, the broken wheel, the sabotage saddle, her father's locket. She then held up her locket for all to see. "This man," she said, pointing at Kemi, "risked his life to save me when my own family cast me out. Who, then, are the savages?" Her words, filled with the undeniable ring of truth, began to sway the crowd. They saw a strong young woman, not a helpless victim. Sheriff Cartwright looked from Eliza's resolute face to Amos's panicked eyes. He was a man who understood human nature. He saw greed and deceit in one and honor and truth in the other. When Finch, realizing the bounty was lost and the situation had turned sour, simply shrugged and walked away, Amos's fate was sealed. "Amos Blackwood," the sheriff said, his voice carrying the weight of the law, "you are under arrest for fraud and attempted murder by abandonment." As his men took Amos away, the crowd parted, their suspicion replaced by a grudging respect for the woman who had dared to speak her truth. In the aftermath, Sheriff Cartwright and his wife Abigail insisted Eliza stay with them. "A young woman cannot be alone out here," Abigail said, her hands fluttering with genuine concern. Their home was a haven of civilized order, with polished wood floors, lace curtains, and the comforting scent of baking bread. They treated her with a kindness that was both welcome and suffocating. She was grateful for their protection, yet every moment spent within those walls felt like a betrayal of the wild freedom she had come to know. Abigail tried to teach her the proper ways of a lady. She was fitted for new dresses with tight corsets that restricted her breathing. She attended church on Sunday, listening to sermons about sin and salvation that felt a world away from the spiritual wisdom of the Riverwind people. "You have been saved, my dear," the preacher told her, patting her hand. "Saved from a life of ignorance." She would smile and nod, playing the part of the grateful orphan, but inside, her spirit felt caged, longing for the vast, open sky. She felt herself split in two. There was Eliza, the polite young woman who helped Abigail in the kitchen and learned to set a proper table. And then there was Anpo, the woman who knew how to track a deer and find her way by the stars, whose heart beat in time with the rhythm of the drums. She would secretly touch the deerskin pouch Tala had given her, its scent of sage and sweetgrass a lifeline to her true self. She was living in a warm, safe house, but she had never felt more homeless. One night, as snow fell in thick, silent blankets over Red Rock, she stood by her window, gazing out at the endless white plains. And then she saw him, a lone rider on the edge of the tree line, a silhouette against the moonlit snow. Kime. He sat perfectly still on his horse, a silent sentinel watching over her. He had not come to take her, not to demand anything. He had come simply to show her that she was not forgotten. He was reminding her that a choice still existed. Her heart ached with a powerful, painful hope. He was her true north. Dawn broke, painting the snow in shades of rose and gold. Eliza made her decision. She penned a letter to the Cartwrights, her words full of genuine gratitude for their kindness, but also a firm explanation of her choice. "A bird may be safe in a cage," she wrote, "but it is not where it belongs." She left the letter on her perfectly made bed. Dressed in the simple deerskin clothes that felt more natural than any calico dress, she slipped out of the house like a shadow, her small satchel holding everything that truly mattered. She followed the trail Kime had taught her to see, a bent twig, a pattern of stones, signs invisible to most, but as clear as a painted map to her. With every step away from the town and toward the open prairie, she felt the pieces of herself clicking back into place. The crisp, clean air filled her lungs. This was freedom. This was home. She was not running from something but running toward everything. She was walking toward the woman she was always meant to be, the woman the prairie and the river wind people had helped her find. The scent of wood smoke reached her first. Then she saw it, the familiar circle of Tippis, a welcome sight against the vastness of the snow. A cry went up as she was spotted. Keme met her halfway, his smile as bright as the morning sun. He did not speak, but simply took her hand. Bright Moon and Tala emerged, their faces alight with joy. Even Chaitin, watching from a distance, gave a slow, deliberate nod, a silent acknowledgement of her strength and her rightful place. She was not a guest returning. She was a daughter coming home. That evening, before the Council of Elders, she stood with Kime by her side. The chief, stone-hand, looked at her with his wise, ancient eyes. "You have seen two worlds, Anpo," he said. "Where does your heart live?" Eliza touched the locket at her throat. "My heart lives where I am seen for who I am," she answered, her voice steady. "It lives where I am free." She had found more than a home. She had found herself. Under the vast Montana sky, beside the man she loved, she had finally learned that belonging is not a place you are given, but a choice you have the courage to make.